I think this session is about something that most of us use but don't actually quite see. Every time a container lands, a flight takes off without drama, a factory gets fuel supply, or a supply chain behaves like it ought to, there's an invisible system working underneath, paddling crazily and constantly growing. This is a system set up by the enterprise called Adani. Karan, welcome to this session. You, your dad, your team, and your system has truly created an enterprise which is quite unique. We used to talk about scale as you see in the US until the Chinese came around. They built factories which were 5, 10, sometimes even 20 times bigger. But what you are showing is actually quite unique. You are doing scale and speed and consistency and quality all at the same time. It'd be interesting to understand from you both what is the motivation and what are the processes that you're using which are unique, which allow you to do this. You are in multiple businesses and appear to be equally successful and growth-oriented in each one. So with me, ladies and gentlemen, for a fireside chat is Karan Adani. Karan, a little bit personal stuff first, if you don't mind. I understand you spent a few years in a missionary school before you went off to Singapore and you finished your school education, etc. Is there anything you learned there in that ecosystem environment which you find useful right now?
First of all, thank you for having me here. Definitely, it was one of the, if you ask me, one of the most important stage of my life, because I had gone when I was in 7th standard. I was there for 3 years. And if you ask me, 3 things which I still follow that from my time in school. That is first one is discipline, because knowing, if you know missionary schools, they are very disciplined. 5 o'clock means you have to wake up at 5 o'clock. If you have to get your bed done by yourself, you have to get it to the T. It felt regimented, but it brought in a lot of discipline in me. The second, I would say, is being self-sufficient, right? Because being in boarding school, you have, your ecosystem is basically your friends, and you have to be able to rely on them and at the same time survive as well. So being self-reliant, being self-sufficient was the second thing I really learned. And third one, which was one of the most important, was in the school, we had students from all backgrounds and from all parts of the country. So that was my first exposure coming out of a Guju boy, coming out of Ahmedabad, never seen, never interacted with anybody else, getting an exposure to various other parts of the country, people coming from, students coming from different parts of the country. I think that was something very unique and something which I cherish, and ability to understand where each one comes from.
So you're not seen much publicly. You don't speak much at various platforms, which is why, if you don't mind, I am asking you some of these questions. I know you entered the business in 2009, and 2016 you took charge of the ports and the SEZ platform. But in your office, you have an F1 suit in a glass enclosure. Now, clearly, this is a passion of yours, and it's a unique sport which leans not only on technology, but extreme accuracy, extreme focus. And now, with the potential acquisition of JP, I understand the F1 course that we have in Greater Noida also falls into the Adani fold. Yeah. So can we expect this to get revived and to see F1 races take place in India?
No, I'm very excited because with JP, obviously the booth circuit comes part of the deal, and we are very excited to. I'm personally driving it, and I'm very personally engaged in terms of bringing Formula One back into India. And I think India has a lot of potential. There is a lot of following in Formula One from India, and I do believe that India can really showcase how a Formula One circuit or how the Formula One, I would say that whole sport can be brought in and can be a benchmark for a global event. There is a lot of potential for our country to demonstrate what we can do in terms of not just infrastructure, but the hospitality, the infrastructure. How do we expose our culture to the global stage? I think this is something which we would like to. That's what my vision is. That when we bring Formula One into India, that's what we need to expose to. It's not just about doing one race and for 3 days, but it's basically how do you showcase the heritage of India.
I understand when you started going to Mundra Port, you used to travel by train, not with any of the aircrafts that your father already owned at that time. Was that deliberate? Was that for a specific reason? Is it something unique you learned on those train journeys? What was going on?
No, so I'll tell you, it's a very interesting story. So, I finished my finals. I was at Purdue and I finished my final exam of fourth year in May. And I remember the next day he said that just come back to India, because we had almost a 10-day break before the convocation to happen. He's like, why are you going to waste 10 days? Just come back to India. So I came back to India, and the day I landed, okay, one night he gave me. The next day morning, he's like, shouldn't you be going to office? I'm like, sure. I just finished college, but okay, sure. So he's like, I met him in the office, and then he's like, okay, so what do you want to do? So I said, port sounds interesting. So he called Dr. Malay Devia, who was running our port business at that time. He was the one who built the whole Mundra Port and was running the port business. So he called him and he's like, okay, take him to tonight itself. Just take him to Mundra. Just send him to Mundra. So so I first journey happened. I didn't know where the train is going to stop. Where do I need to get off? But it was interesting. So directly from US to Mundra. But I think so. First year was very interesting for me because I was put on the field. I was not given any office space, no desk, nothing. I was told to spend time completely on field, be on the coal yard, be on the jetty, learn everything in terms of detailing how people are feeling over there, how do they manage on ground level. I think that whole 1 year gave me a lot of exposure in terms of what are the pain points of people on the ground, how do contractors, how do they operate, where are the loopholes that they exploit in those things. So I think that was a very grounded journey for me, and something which has given me a strong foundation when I look back.
So your wife is from the leading legal family of the country, and I understand she also looks after the Gujarat office of Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas. So is that helpful for you in any way in understanding structuring, understanding process in the businesses that you do? Do you actually have conversations at home about the implications of what you do or what you don't do?
The way I would put it is we work very closely, and as an entrepreneur, as a family business, you generally are very aggressive when you want to grow, when you want to close the deals. And so it's always good to have a family member who is telling, at least showing you where the risk parameters are, and then you take an informed call.
So the Adani build out not just looks fast, it is almost unbelievable, the pace at which you are growing right now. So what are your big concerns as you grow rapidly, there are always obviously some challenges and some risks. So what do you try and protect? Do you try and protect the speed? Do you try and protect the predictability? Do you try and protect the scalability? What are your big concerns as you grow?
So I think it's a very good question, and there is something that we have been, for the last 2 years, it's something that we have been deeply thinking about, and based on that, we are making a lot of changes in the organization. So two things that we have noticed, that as we have scaled, we find that we have become slow and quite fat. So what we feel is, if you want to continue to grow, as a group, we are committed to doing greenfield capex of 2 lakh crores every year for the next 5 years. So if we have to physically execute this kind of capex, it's impossible to do it in the current method, right? So for us, what matters is speed and scalability. I think what we are going through as an organization is the transformation in terms of, if we have to protect these two things, what are the non-core activities that we are still continuing from the past, and which we can shed, bring in partners, bring in other stakeholders who can help us and drive that, and we rather focus on the large projects, focus on scale and focus on executing for the business purpose, not for executing for an execution purpose. So I think that's a big change that we are going through.
So good. So while on this, so what is it in our system currently that still bleeds time and money as a resource, like a slow puncture in everything that you do? And because you've actually thought about this now, in sense of sharpening your focus on the key areas, the core areas, capacity addition, of course, is a delight. Everybody likes to grow. So what has been your learning is, what are the parts that you do not want to give up control of as this goes on?
So I think
there's 2 parts. I want the first one as well. What is it that causes this pain and the problems?
Sure. So I think as you become bigger and as your scale becomes bigger, the pain point becomes is and the layers, as you become bigger, your layers in the organization increases, right? So I'll just give an example. Today, from chairman to the bottom level, we have in the group 16 layers, right? And what happens with that is, you can't fix accountability because everybody is pushing the buck up or down. I think the second point which you asked, second question, is what we want to hold and what we don't want to. So I'll give you an example. What in terms of port operations, right? Today, the way traditionally how we have been operating is, we operate every part of the port. So we have our own operators, we have our own truck drivers, we have our maintenance crew, we have everything. And it worked for us because there was not enough ecosystem at that point of time, good ecosystem to help us drive this objective. Now, as we move forward, what we have done is we've brought in partners, long-term partners with a horizon of 10, 15, 20-year contracts. We said, you operate the whole terminal for us. Our team is going to and you give us the productivity, you give us the uptime. Our job is to make sure that we bring in technology, so there is a continuous improvement in the system.
Let's talk a little bit about capital allocation. Now, sometimes I wonder, you guys seem to have no shortage of money at all. You do anything that you see, anything that moves, you acquire, you go and build. And so how does this happen? What is the process that you use? How do you prioritize?
So, from far off, it does feel that we are doing too many things, and
it does sometimes,
yeah,
yes.
But actually, when you look closer as a group, we are basically focused on 3 things, and 3 things only. One is the whole energy utility, and in that we strongly believe that energy will be the future of global, right? And in that, whether it's not about one energy or the another, it's not just about renewable, but in this space, there is a lot of opportunity to go vertically integrated as well as to go horizontal in terms of different sorts of energy. And that's where the group is playing, whether it's on renewable energy, thermal, city gas distribution, transmission, distribution, even data center. Data center is an energy business for us. The second portfolio that the group is in is the whole transport and logistics. That's where the ports, airports, railway line, warehousing, that's where it comes in. And then the third is basically materials and science. Basically, any material that the country requires for the infrastructure growth or the digitization. So that's where the whole cement business, the copper, and now we are looking to enter into aluminum. So these are some of the business. So actually, when you think about it, each business actually relies on each other's strength, and that's where that makes us unique, and that allows us to even scale up a little faster. Just so for you know, I'll just answer your question in terms of capital allocation and how we look at it. The way we structure is any new business that or any new vertical that we see India needs or where we see a big opportunity, that we incubate in Adani Enterprise. Adani Enterprise is the holdco for us, and that's the incubator. And then once a business comes to a certain scale, we demerge it, and then it runs independently. Once it runs independently, the balance sheet of that business supports whatever growth that it needs to do. The second thing that we have done, and especially in infra space, where Dad had seen this, had anticipated this problem from 2010, is that, you know, when, especially in infra businesses, you are taking concessions which are 30 years, you're signing PPAs which are 30 years. However, and you do your modeling also based on 30 years. But when it comes to actual reality, what we do is we end up taking bank debt. The bank debt is 10 years, so your repayment is done in 10 years, including the principal, and that's where the whole problem happens, right? So one of the things that from 2010 we have started doing was started rating all our businesses at the global bond market. And the idea is that you do construction with the bank debt, but once an asset is operationalized, you take it into the bond market, refinancing it completely with a 30-year debt, 30-year bond, and that's how, you know, even though interest rate is 1 or 2% higher,
So
it's okay, but
avoid the mismatches as well.
You avoid the mismatch, and that's the way we look at the capital management, and it's one of the most critical strategic part of how we are being able to manage each of the business.
So you also showed a little bit of a shift while you mentioned these three broad categories of what you do. You, in a sense, while you can club it as transportation, you spoke about the partnership with Embraer, you spoke about space, you spoke about defense. So would you club them in these same three circles, or is there a shift taking place?
No, so one of the things that we are, which is again as a group philosophy, we prioritize ourselves around national priority. What is the interest of the nation? Because that allows you to then make sure that there are less resistance in the path that you're taking. And if you see, one of the big national priority is on the indigenization of the defense ecosystem. And that's how we are entering into this. We've entered into it. We are already there in unmanned systems. We are there on the ammunition. We are already there on the small arms and the medium arms manufacturing. And over the course of last 2 years, we have also been able to consolidate the whole MRO space as well as the training space, the pilot training space. And as India has to grow the civil aviation network, that's how we looked at the partnership with Embraer, because this is part of the larger ecosystem. It's not just about making aircraft, but it's with the aircraft, how do you do also the maintenance of it? How do you create that whole ecosystem of maintenance? How do you create the whole ecosystem of pilot training? Not just for India. Yes, it starts with for India, but eventually how do you do it for the region, and how do you make it as a global hub?
How do you see the evolving commitment of corporations towards well-being of people, communities, and planet, all of them, So what are you doing in Adani to ensure that you are a more responsible citizen in every aspect?
Most of the time when we think of conscious capital or being sustainable, we think that it's at the cost of profitability. I am of a firm view that it is not one or the other. You can still be extremely profitable or sometimes increase your profitability even by going sustainable. I'll just give you some examples, right? What I mean. Today, all our port operations we do through heavy duty trucks which are completely running on diesel. This year, we will be converting everything on EV. And I'm not kidding. My payback for that whole investment is 1 year.
Wow.
So when you look at it, I think there is a lot of opportunity, and I think it's our mindset that we feel that sustainability actually just it's at the cost of profitability or means increasing our cost. It's actually not.
How are you preparing yourselves to adopt technology rather than get bowled over by technology?
So I think this goes without saying that any organization which does not adopt to AI, honestly, 10 years down the line, they will not survive. And AI, I don't mean in one format, I think across the board. So the way I see it is, AI is not going to replace human being, but I think it's just going to make us more efficient. So for a work which we needed, let's say 5 people or 4 people, maybe you just need 1 person right now to do that. And that's what, so with that, I personally believe that it will allow us to scale up much faster, any industry.
Let me interrupt for a moment. So there is no doubt AI is going to be, if used well as a tool, going to be a phenomenal multiplier in what you can do. But it's also a fact that before people get reskilled, retrained, and get onto new opportunities, which will come because of technology and AI, there is going to be massive job losses as well. How do we handle the social outcome of that?
So I personally feel that is a responsibility of any organization, especially large organization, that how do we retrain our people? Because without that, I agree with you, it is going to create a lot of social pressure. It means you are going to have job losses. But as a as a responsible corporate, because AI is not going to happen that today you switch on and tomorrow say it will start, right? It is a journey, even for an organization, a 2-year journey where you implement the tools, where you get the organization used to it, the change management. And one of the biggest part of the change management is how do you retrain your manpower.
10 years down the road, other than growth, what would you like to be known for as an organization? What would you like people to say about the Adani Group?
So I think apart from being known for growth, scale, large projects, I think the most important thing that we would like the group to be known for is being a responsible citizen for the country and for the people of the country.
Karan Adani, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mundra.
Thank you.